Yeah. Yeah. Come. Yeah. Yeah, come on.
Hello.
Hey, Six Senses. All right, we're back. All right, so let's make this shit happen, man. Let's go with the topic of you know what? Mgtow is not the same as feminism. Never has been, never will be.
I completely agree, but I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Okay.
And give them a little bit of credit from a tertiary overview. So basically, if they just only take a brief look at it, especially from a biased lens, I can see how they can come to their conclusions. You know,
Okay.
we're basically going away from marriage, which radical feminists, especially of the '60s, polarized and made one of their biggest pitches. Oh, marriage is slavery. Well, Mgtow say similar things. So on a very tertiary, very surface level, looking at it, when you want to see Mgtow as being a negative thing, you can find similarities, of course. And that is really the case of any kind of movement that only focuses in on the issues of one gender. You're going to find similarities, but that doesn't mean that their goals or even that their concepts are anything the same.
Yeah.
But I really think that what leads to it is just this surface level analysis of, ooh, what, men are swearing off marriage? Well, that's just what the feminists did. You're just like the feminists. And I'm not for that, so I'm not for you.
Do you think that maybe that's a type of callback to, well, what most people say traditionalism?
I think it's more a case of, as my most recent video, I've been delving into this concept of the Cartman drama triangle. And I think what it really happens to is that these men, because it seems to come mostly from men and some women, and what they're doing is they're both playing either the rescuer or the victim. The men want to be the rescuer, and what they're doing is they're saying, well, these horrible men are rejecting women. And when you reject women, both the rescuer and the victim, being women, are going to cast us, mostly, as the persecutor. So we're the bad guy, we're the villain instantly from any case of any man who comes across us that has the attitude of wanting to rescue a woman. And this is very important because a hero is only as good as their villain. That's just the reality. You think of any fiction you've ever enjoyed, the hero is usually pretty dull character, and it's all about the obstacles they have to overcome in regards to the villain.
Yes.
So when somebody is looking to be a rescuer, they're looking for a villain. So Mgtow fits the bill quite nicely if you're trying to save women. And when women come across it, they hear criticism and go, "Oh shit, somebody's criticizing women. I best damsel myself a bit and try and shame these men," because that's the first tactic women always use.
I absolutely agree. Now, okay, what do you think about this though? Because if we consider the popular media is what it drives, especially in feminism. It drives the concepts forward. This popular media, the internet, the TV, whatever it might be. But Mgtow rarely comes up as the villain. Generally what comes up is this acronym of MRA.
Yes, because the MRA makes a far superior villain than Mgtow. For example, a man going his own way barely even... there's a handful of us making videos on YouTube. We don't make a particularly excellent villain. I mean, we're just kind of maybe in the shadows somewhere. We're just not that all that seeable and marketable as a villain. whereas a men's rights activist is an exceedingly good villain. I remember after the men's issues conference by A Voice for Men, there was one of these hatchet articles, and what they had done with Paul Elam's photo was they had photoshopped it so he looked seriously menacing. I mean,
I saw that.
I was just looking at that, and I've studied photography. I've been a professional photographer, and I thought, oh shit, there's a good couple of hours of work in that, because it wasn't just like a bit of contrast. No, they really went into detail to try and shadow his eyes more and really highlight all of his pores, and that's how we traditionally do villains. That we really want to paint as being maniacal. We highlight all of their flaws. Physically, more so than mentally or emotionally.
Well, okay, I saw that picture, and I felt actually I'm not a photographer, but I saw that picture, man, and I swear to God, I thought, holy fuck, how can you make that guy look more villainous? Like that is the villain, that is the fucking villain. But what I want to approach now is this: when they're trying to make a villain out of men, they tend to approach the MRA. Right?
Yes.
Now, what is it about them that has made? Okay, what is it about the MRA that has made them the Lex Luthor to Superman?
I'd say it's more that they're more likely to go after picking a fight with the feminists. One of the reasons why I ended up in the Mgtow section was they weren't so inclined. They just kind of went, you know what, the MRAs are doing that effectively. There's not really much point in making these rebuttal videos, and let's explore some more interesting stuff. Let's explore as deeply as the individual content maker wanted to go. And that's the thing. MRAs go looking for a fight. And this is one of the reasons why I was talking to you earlier before we were recording about my second video about drama triangles, is that in that case, when the MRAs are looking for a feminist video to tear apart, they're acting as the persecutor in the triangle. And then the feminist acts like the victim, and then the male feminist acts like the rescuer, and they all go around in a circle, all playing their roles, interchange, and the drama just keeps happening. Nothing ever gets done. And the thing is, they all want that part. They all want to play one or multiple parts on the triangle, and they all feed into each other marvelously, whereas Mgtow have a much more attitude of just, you know what, I'm going to make my videos, and occasionally I'll do a rebuttal video to usually not feminists, actually. Most of my rebuttal videos back in the day were to like Rocking Mr. E and the Critical G, and now this latest neo-masculinity. I just don't bother with feminism because it's so easily disprovable. I mean, here in Australia, there's a statistic from the police, it's very alarming. It comes from the police. That is 1 in 3 women will suffer sexual violence. And I've tried to look up what they classify as sexual violence and can't find it. And the thing is, when you have the word violence in, everybody thinks rape. Well, that's a higher rate of rape here in Australia, a Western first world nation, than the Congo.
Holy shit!
I mean, we're outbeating. According to that statistic, we have outbeat South Africa, and it's the rape capital of the world. And that's what I mean. That's how easy you can disprove feminism in these regards. And to the original topic, this is another thing that separates Mgtow from feminism, is that Mgtow will actually put in some legwork to do decent research as best as we can, because we don't have the government funding, we don't have ourselves in academia. And I'd never want Mgtow in academia. There's no point in it.
No.
I'd like people looking into these things that we're looking into in a non-biased, non-political fashion. But I'm an optimistic pessimist, and I would believe that that's pretty impossible. Most people tend to go forth into the human sciences with a foregone conclusion to seek to prove it.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good point you just made. Is when it comes to feminism or feminists, feminism, it has to be backed by some kind of claim that it was educational. That I spent a number of years studying this. Gender, what do they call it? Gender studies.
Oh, that's
right?
not always true. The amount of random bloggers that sometimes either have a gender studies degree or are getting one or just an arts degree. I've got a mate down here who his recent girlfriend was talking about making a feminist blog, and I've had a bit of an influence on him, and he knows feminism's full of shit. He just hasn't kind of taken it a bit further than that. And so he just laughs at her whenever she brings it up and just goes, feminism's a crock of shit. He's just right out with that. And
but the woman herself, was she educated in that?
No, she's in university. She's doing like some sort of arts degree. So unless there's like a minor in gender studies she's taking, but from what I understand, she doesn't have any direct contact to feminism except for the university environment. And this isn't a major university. It's it's a decent sized one, I suppose, but it's not a capital one.
But I wonder. I mean, how much of your education do you? Okay, let's consider this: the STEM fields, right? One of the main arguments nowadays within feminism is that there's not enough women in STEM fields.
Something
of course,
Mgtow is utterly unconcerned with.
Yeah, we're completely unconcerned with that. We don't give a fuck.
We're not saying we need more men in any particular field. We would be saying, hey, maybe just a little bit less male homelessness. That would be a bit of a nice thing, but we're of the attitude of if you want to go into any particular education, do so on your own steam and earn it.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the question that I have: is that do you think that within higher education in general, that it seems to be pushed towards women obtaining and taking on these degrees that have no value to the real world?
I wouldn't say that it's so much a push. I'd say it's just, ironically, capitalism filling a niche. I mean, when men go into university, they're thinking, all right, I want to get a high-paying job, so lawyer, doctor, something like that. Now that we've gotten into more, the affluent times are ending a bit. It's with the recession. We had more middle-class suburban kids going into these universities doing touchy-feely stuff because their parents kept telling them, do what you want and the money will come. Do what you love. And so they went and, okay, sure, on some theory that can work if you're lucky. But this is really just capitalism because the universities then cater to this demand. Women want to take easier courses, particularly gender studies might as well just be called vagina studies. It's a study about how women are fantastic, how men are evil, how women are victims. And again, women absolutely love the victim identity. And it's just catering to it.
Do you think that's bleeding over into the rest of the arts, though? I mean, because come on, let's face it. I mean, when it comes to gender studies, they pigeonhole into the artistic concept of education. A Bachelor of Arts meant something different 20 years ago than it does now. Now it seems like a Bachelor of Arts means you need to be sexist, basically.
No, I think what art has become is just another bastardized form of protest. And it's not so much just feminism, it's just the social justice wanker mentality that if you want to protest something, make some sort of crappy art piece. And
all right. So how would you separate, say, the feminist from the social justice?
social justice will expand out from vagina. That's just it. As simple as that. They will take on race. They'll take on anything environment. They actually, ironically, don't touch classism except for capitalism bad. That's as close as they get to classism, because I think deep down they know that if they were to take on classism, they would lose instantly, because they're mostly middle and some upper class. And
Or perhaps the fact that the only reason they have the education they do have is because they're in that class that is allowed to have that education.
yeah, that's what I mean. They've got what if they started fighting class, the working class, the true working class would just turn on them in a second. Would just go, you don't know our lives, fuck off, piss off. I mean, the working class have always been very crass, very crude when it comes to people speaking on their behalf who have never lived their experience. They will support a political candidate who's like, I will use more of the tax money to help you, but they won't. If basically university hipsters started saying, you know, oh, we're going to fight for your causes, no, the lower class wouldn't fucking have it.
So do you think that that's interesting, because do you think that the feminist model somehow meets that in the middle? The feminist model meets the concept of forgetting about class and focusing more on things that don't matter, like race and sex and all that shit. As far as SJW is concerned, do you think the feminists meet that somewhere in the middle, where? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do. They do join at the hip. They're kind of like conjoined twins, I suppose, would be a bit of an analogy. And the only difference is that feminism likes to trot off every so often and make it all about vagina. I basically take a look at feminism, just say, all right, who are the main members of it? Okay, women, white women, first world, Western, middle to upper class. Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty exclusive club there, and you want to tell me about how to be inclusive across the entire globe? Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And that's how I start every if I ever have to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk about feminism in person, I always shut it down by saying that, because it comes across as extremely racist, classist, sexist, and that's what it is. By just taking in the members. And there's an old quote, and I'm just going to paraphrase it was from some Roman general, that basically, don't listen to those who dictate how the world should live when they cannot live up to their own standards.
Yeah. Say it again. Repeat that.
Basically, do not listen to those people who dictate to you how you should live when they cannot live to their own standards.
Yes.
And that's what feminism is. As far as I'm concerned, feminism is just a collection of women who are, and some men, who are not mentally or emotionally mature.
Yeah, you know, I've thought about that a lot myself, and one of the conclusions that I've always come to is that in order for an individual, whether it be male or female, to adopt that kind of psychology into their life, I always think, wait a second, you're not really observing the world as it is around you.
And that's exactly what children do. They look at it through their own personal lens. You know, if they think, if they're big on superheroes at any particular part of time, they'll look at things from good versus bad, or from right versus wrong. But they won't from any other aspect, and that's acceptable for children. It's not acceptable for adults, and
man,
that's it.
Is that do you think that's okay? We're here to discuss why Mgtow is not feminism. Okay.
Well, there's your answer. So, we've already the men in Mgtow are mentally and emotionally adults, and they put in. the difference is you'll hear anger from Mgtow men because they've been put through a hellish situation where they either weren't prepared for, or they were prepared for, but either way they got raked over the coals.
Yeah. So basically, basically the difference, if I can say this, one of the main differences is a sort of maturity. Now, is that maturity is that biological? Is that a mental maturity? Is it different between men and women?
No. I think it's just really a case of an affluent society. For the Western nations in particular, I think it's more a case of just a situation of our own success. We're victims of our own success. I don't like the word victim, but at the moment it's what's come to mind. We've become so successful that we are lethargic. And in a very lethargic-based culture, we're going to have a case of extending of childhood, for a start. And this is one of the biggest things that you see the difference between first world and third world nations, is childhood is extended. So in third world nations, childhood can end around 12 or 13. In first world, it's like 18, 21. And that's quite a big difference. So we're allowing ourselves, when we have more affluence, to be children for longer. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what has occurred is now we're getting to a point. Hang on a second. Can you hear my dog scraping at the door there?
I heard a little scrape, but it's all right.
All right.
I can hear it.
Basically, this is the problem. We're not actually encouraging our children to actually mature, and I think part of the problem is that we don't really have. Well, for my generation, I'm in Generation Y. My parents were of.
Me too, man.
they're of the ilk of basically, the soft parenting, but in all the wrong ways. And it wasn't the fact that they spoiled me, it was the case of that they were basically of the case that you go do whatever you want and in life, and things will come. But when it came to actually, say, being nurturing and being actually having family bonds, this was where it all kind of fell apart in my particular family for years. And now it's getting to a point where we're able to actually start forming bonds.
Interesting, man, because like you said in your drama triangle, right? Victim to persecutor, and then does the persecutor become the rescuer?
No. What in the Cartman drama triangle, what is more likely to occur is that it will start either with a rescuer or a victim, and when the rescuer comes to help the victim then becomes the persecutor by saying, "You're not helping me enough," and then the rescuer becomes the victim, and somebody else who wants to be a rescuer will come into the original rescuer, who's now in the victim position, and take them and start their own brand new triangle all over again. But the reason what happened was it eventually evolved to the VRP, the Victim Rescuer Perpetrator Triangle, for when there is more than two parties, and this is what happens in a lot of families. A lot of people take on one or two of these roles, and in the second triangle, you can move in pretty much any direction. You can start out as the persecutor, and then become the victim, then the rescuer, then victim, persecutor again. And it's a bit more complicated, and this is why I'm doing up infographics for my next video on this topic, just to give some visual.
That's good. And anybody listening now, please go and look at Six Sensess's video on this, because it's good information. It's very good, very, very good information.
Yes, I second that, and I'm a totally unbiased source.
He's an unbiased source.
Yeah.
And I'm biased.
Exactly. I'm totally unbiased. It's been certified by this piece of paper I have written myself that says that I am unbiased. Exactly.
But I'll tell you, man, I've seen this before, though. I've heard people address it as far as Mgtow is concerned. I've heard people address it, and I think it's very important. So I think it's good to, like, make it clear.
Is this the whole thing that Mgtows come from broken families or something?
No, not necessarily, but the fact that it does exist, and within Mgtow, as far as I've seen within Mgtow, is that it envelops so much of not just men's issues, but human issues, or the dynamics between not just men and women, but
on a grander
parents and children,
on a grander scale on life, and I think that's just natural when you start looking into these things. This is essentially, again, this is another reason why Mgtow unfortunately can be falsely equated to being like feminism, is because when feminism starts looking at the issues of women, and they have had some issues, not major ones, but some, because most of feminism happened during the 20th century. When they started looking into this, they started going down the rabbit hole, and what they did was they just kept expanding and digging deeper and deeper, and tried to filter it into every possible aspect. I think where Mgtow differs is you go into, like, my latest video on the Cartman drama triangle, you look at things in an aspect of how do the genders relate to one another, and the most obvious way is that men are constantly fighting to rescue women, and women are constantly trying to be rescued by men. And you just try and find the simplest answers, whereas feminism seems to go for the most complicated answers. And
yeah, but they try to make it look simple when it's
no,
completely...
I disagree. They try to make it look complicated. I remember an interview with Erin Prisley. I actually bought her book, This Way to the Revolution. She was the woman who founded the first ever women's domestic violence shelter, and she's actually a top woman. The book was a bit of a hard read because she didn't write it very well, but it's got a lot of interesting stuff in it.
So wait a second. So she, I know Erin Pizzey.
Yep.
I know her standpoint.
That's what I was saying. She had read the Feminine Mystique when it first came out, and she was noting that she had to have a thesaurus and a dictionary on hand to be able to read it, because it purposely used big and academic and over-the-top unnecessary words, so as to purposely alienate most of the female population.
Now, do you think that has carried over until now?
Oh, yes. Feminism is very big on trying to make itself seem academic with big words. I mean, they've invented words. I mean...
Not only have they invented words, but they've redefined words.
Yes, but that's pretty typical of any political and cult-minded organization. Redefining of words is nothing particularly new, but it's more it's the invention of words just to try and sound like, oh, look, we're something so separate and academic and different. We've had to create our own words to describe these new things we're discovering. And I think that's the whole mindset behind it. It's to try and claim that they've discovered a new element, and they've named it,
Feminisiam.
Yeah, something like that. That's not bad.
Feminisiam.
The weakest metal on the planet.
Yeah.
Wolverine can't. He's got like bloody butter knives coming out that are all rubber and everything.
He was endowed with feminisiam, and his whole life just disappeared after that.
Oh no, his bones, they all melted. He's basically now just a glutulous goo of rubber. He can't die.
Well,
he still can't die, but he doesn't live well.
No, he doesn't live well. And that's why he likes to drink a lot, because he doesn't want to feel the pain of feminisiam.
Mate, we're hoping it's drinking. We don't know which orifice it's going into at this point, coming out.
Oh, he just doesn't know. But I'll tell you something, man. Okay, one of the biggest differences, and I just finished compiling, but a part of a chat that I had with a bunch of Mgtow people, okay? And it was just a random chat, and it was a random hangout, and everybody was just talking. Nobody expected it was being recorded. It was just, we're talking. Bunch of guys talking about Mgtow. And I got it recorded, and I'm trying to put it up. I'm going to probably get it up by the end of the night, I think. But the thing I learned about it, because I had to listen to it again and again and again, and make sure, because it was 7 hours long.
Oh, shit,
man.
mate, that's dedication.
Yeah. So I cut off the first hour, right? And I've already like gone through it and made the video for the first hour, and I'll put that up, and then I'll just I'll keep doing that. And one thing I noticed about how men communicate with one another, there's this very, and this is not feminism, okay? This is not feminism. This is Mgtow men talking to one another. And one thing I noticed is that they feed off of each other's words, and the conversation changes accordingly.
It's a constructive conversation. It's like building a building. One
Yes.
person starts with the foundation, and another group comes in and builds the first floor. Some other group comes in the second, so on and so forth. Whereas
Yes.
feminism, it's usually about just talking in loops, coming back around to the feels that they're
Yes.
trying to convey. And this isn't to say that male conversations don't have feelings involved or conveyed. It's not to wallow in them. This is why, again, I equate feminists to children. Because children will throw a tantrum for bloody ages and wallow in that state. And feminists will do this as well. Women, I think, are more biologically prone to wallowing, but also society has always made it clear that men do have to mature. Women can choose to mature. And I think that's one of the big differences between the two of them.
Huge difference, man. It's an absolutely huge difference. I mean, I'm going to prove with this stupid little hangout upload. Okay, there are enemies of Mgtow that come out and try to tarnish the name for clicks, for clickbait, and to make their blog look better. It always happens. But I'll tell you something. The only people that really give us a bad name, they've already been done. Paul Elam did that. It's done. It's an MRA. It's like MRA is the mass shooter. MRA is the rapist. MRA is the
No. I'm going to step in here and play again devil's advocate. That was really AVFM. And that wasn't so much. There are a lot of individual MRAs out there who did not support that and have come out and said they didn't. And what I saw that as was Paul Elam's attempt to try and cash in on the traditionalist crowd and eventually try and make essentially a Voice for Men as another right-wing website that would have gotten him a lot more money but would have made no significant progress. And
so do you think he did that? Do you think he actually went through with that concept?
I think he's going through that. I think it's going to be a couple of years process, but I've been noticing that there's been an uptake of the traditionalist mindset, regardless of how it's rebranded, either neo-masculinity or whatever, that's been coming into the manosphere as a new thing that's been happening. And this is natural with whenever a recession happens, people start getting more into any political party that's a bit more conservative with money. And also feminism has taken its point to such a ludicrous, and it keeps trying to push itself It's already gone well off the cliff, but it seems to keep trying to find another cliff to throw itself off of. And
Well, well, I'll tell you, man. One thing I enjoy about that is the fact that look, Mgtow has okay. We've identified ourselves with an acronym. Okay, we've done that. We've given ourselves a title, and we'll define it as it is defined. However, these feminists, these traditionalists, these people, they're not calling our name out as an opposition. In other words, we're almost invisible to them. I mean,
we're invisible.
can you
We're
see that?
invisible to most of them. Like academic feminism doesn't even acknowledge that we exist. The mainstream doesn't acknowledge, but anything that's linked to the manosphere does, and sees Mgtow as a big threat, because Mgtow is starting to take over the.
But they never say our name. They never drop our name, man. They just drop MRA.
No, I've heard them say Mgtow. Yeah,
Really?
Roosh V just recently. He was all about.
Yeah, but he's a man. He's isn't he one of us? I
No,
thought he was
fuck
supposed
no.
to be one of
He's one of these. He was one of the big PUAs
Jesus.
who's now
We're getting-
He was the one who created neo-masculinity. He's trying to rebrand it to try and merge his PUA material, because that's where he was making all his money.
And he's getting old.
Yeah, and he's getting old and trying to bring it in. And he did mention Mgtow. There was No Holes Barred YouTube channel did a pretty good takedown of it. And he
Nice.
brought up, he said
Nice.
Mgtow won't exist in next 2 or 5 years. And he said the MRAs will, because there will be still men getting divorced. And as No Holes Barred made a point, he said, well, if men are still getting divorced and destroyed in that, I think there will still be men going their own way.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, they
Yeah,
have.
that's
And
ridiculous.
Rocking Mr. E was, oh god, he really went at Mgtow. And Critical G went at us and actually used the acronym. But this was before your days of making content.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So okay, but I honestly believe that Mgtow is in a space right now where people are kind of oblivious, because there's this outward sort of conflict going on, and nobody's aware. Nobody's aware. We're just going like, yep. You keep talking. You keep doing your shit. We're standing.
well, that's
here.
the thing. You can't turn us into the put us in the rescuer category, and you can't put us in the persecutor/villain category.
Yes, that's it.
Because it's like looking at the herbivore men. Now they're different to the Mgtow men. These men in Japan, who are on mass scale, something like 20 to 30% of Generation Y, and I think like 15% of Generation X.
Mm-hmm.
That are just refusing. They're just not getting a career. They're not getting a girlfriend. They're not getting a wife. And what they're doing is they're rejecting success, and as a byproduct, rejecting success with women. Whereas Mgtow are rejecting women, or at least women as they are. And that's the big difference. But you can't make these herbivore men into a villain. I mean, come on. There was a documentary I saw ages ago where they were talking about, hey, with how the herbivore man has his own pudding brand. And I mean, god damn it, a little Japanese guy standing on the corner eating pudding is not a threat. I mean, if that's your villain, you get all suited up in like some fucking Superman outfit, come bouncing
That's a
down
Batman
from the top
villain.
of the building, and you're like, where's the villain? Oh, it's this guy? He's eating pudding. Who's being affected by this guy? And this is the thing, you can't... and the guys in the West who are just playing video games, these horror...
Yeah.
There are people trying to come out and demonize them and going, oh, they'll be either the next shooters, or they'll be... or they're
Poor guys, man.
they're going to
Poor
be
fucking guys.
failures to launch, or these other things like, oh, we got to stop them from playing video games, this shit. But you can't make them into villains. You can't, because again, like a fat guy on a couch eating Cheetos is not a good villain. You know, Magneto's over there, but you're going to fight the Cheeto guy? Oh no, he's clogging his own arteries. Quick, stop him before he gets diabetes. Oh,
So you know what Mgtow is then. Like, okay, let's make the villain comparison.
well,
Mgtow.
we're something in between. We're like the guy. We're like the. There used to be, especially in the 90s videos, there used to be like the dad who always went out doing fishing, right? And he had that cap on that had all the fishing hooks, and he would just be out gone fishing. That's what Mgtow is. And there used to be, I think it was even, you had like a little picture, your original picture, if it's not...
My original picture.
Gone fishing.
Gone fisted.
Fisted.
No, it was gone fisted.
Ah, all right, I like that. All right. But...
no, that's what it was. Gone fisting.
Right.
Sorry, I'm gone fisting.
But Mgtow aren't the guys eating the Cheetos because they don't actually know what's going on. They just know they don't want to participate. We're not the herbivore men who are rejecting success. We're the guys like those fathers just gone fishing. That's what we are. And you can't turn a guy who's just sitting on a wharf somewhere, metaphorically fishing and metaphorically drinking beer, into a villain. You can't. The closest they can come is this whole aspect of the white race or the Western world will cease to exist because nobody's procreating. You know, apparently, all of what
they play that game all the time, man. I hate that.
That one was back to Rockin' Mr. E's day. Oh God, he was still pulling out that one.
Jesus.
That just somehow, I think there's probably about 10 to 50,000 men online who identify as Mgtow, and to one varying degree or another, they've reduced or maybe increased how much sex they're having. Yet somehow this is going to lead to the end of the population. And
unbelievable.
This is the closest they can come to making a villain out of us, because we're not. Because then they've left open the rescuer role, so that we all go, ooh, quick, gotta save my race, gotta save my nation, by impregnating some bar skank, because that's just what we need. We need, essentially half-licked up children coming out of, a slapper cunt for the species.
Oh my God, man. That is, I can't, it's laughable how they try to turn us into a villain, because this is the way I look at it in a comic book perspective, all right? And there's some people out there that will listen to this and appreciate it. Some people won't. But I consider ourselves like the Lex Luthor of villains. Because we just sit back and watch what happens. And then we react based on...
self-defense and self-interest.
Yes. Self-defense, self-interest. Exactly. We are like the Lex Luthor. And we're intelligent. We're fucking intelligent. I spend so much time talking to people that blow my mind.
Oh, you wait till I've got two videos in the works at the moment, and I've got one that's about the female fertility cycle and how there's evidence out that shows that when women ovulate, there's a 25% increase in their sex drive. And naturally, hookup culture or casual sex culture, which revolves around clubbing and pubbing and whatnot, these women out there are most likely going to be ovulating. And there's another type as to the ones that troll that area, but it's basically to make men aware that it's a baby trap.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But this is the whole point, man. I mean, I can sit down for an hour and a half with you or with other people in Mgtow, and I can talk, and I can ask questions, or answer questions, and I will come out from that conversation in a sense of understanding and being enlightened. Now, I'm not going to get that, and ladies, please listen to this, I'm not going to get that from you as ladies. I'm sorry. It ain't going to happen. And that's okay. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Ladies, on the other hand. But I just... What sort of bulletin points can I say as Mgtow being different to feminism? I suppose that we actually don't want women in our group, whereas feminism seems to want a very particular type of man. They're sort of one that will grovel on his hands and knees for a bit of a pat.
Yeah. That's a very good difference, actually. Well, another difference, I could say this, is that every man that I've ever met that has been a part of Mgtow has always been concerned about learning, actually criticizing what they already know.
Yes, well, feminists would probably claim the same. They would say, oh, look, everything we were told is false, that it's normal for women to be portrayed in sexy fashions in fiction. And yeah, it is, because fiction is a reflection of reality. It's just a bit more of a warped, skewed, sort of a more interesting version. This is one of the things that I always find annoying about the feminists when they critique fiction. They don't seem to understand that we don't want it to be boring. That's one of the biggest things that annoys the hell out of me when it comes to that. They don't seem to realize that every aspect of fiction is trying to be entertaining, right down to the clothing choice.
Yes. I don't get that. And that's a big difference, too. And, hey, wait a second. Do you think that maybe... now, I don't want to lump all women into a pile here. But why is it so much easier for a man to go, well, that's a nice piece of fiction, than it is for a woman to say that same fucking thing?
I think, again, it comes down to maturity. And, again, men are forced to mature. Women are allowed to mature or can mature. But I think another big difference is that men view fiction differently than what women do. Women view fiction sort of for more the emotional content, the feelings that it invokes within the women. Whereas...
Do you think that it's because they attach it to themselves all the time? Like even fiction is a part of their identity, whereas men can separate themselves from it?
It's not a part of their identity. It's more the case of how the fiction makes them feel. So if something happens, like my mother read 50 Shades of Grey because I bought it as a lark on a plane trip and couldn't stop laughing throughout the whole plane reading that damn thing. And I do BDSM, so I found that hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
And but she got a hold of it, and she got so obsessed with it that she got the other two. And it was more the case that she went on this roller coaster of just basically being pissed off, being... The biggest thing that seemed to drive her was she was pissed off at what the male character did sometimes to the female character, and that she was like, "This is abuse," and other things like that. And it spurred her on to read the other two, which had no BDSM aspects to it.
Okay, but why would she be spurred on to read the rest if she didn't like the first?
Again, it's still the same thing as the emotions. The emotional reaction is far more intense as to they feel not necessarily victimized, but they feel it's the group collective again. If something bad happens to a woman, even in fiction, they feel that something bad has happened to the entire collective. Whereas men can watch, hundreds, thousands of men get gunned down and understand that that's just a fiction. That's not men as a group being assaulted, and I think that's probably the biggest difference.
Well, maybe what you're saying here then is a big difference between Mgtow and feminism, and it might have to do with what kind of junk you got between your legs, because in the end, we as men can understand the difference between, like you said, fiction and reality, whereas women maybe they can understand it, but they refuse to.
No. Again, I still think it's more the case that if something bad happens to a woman in fiction, or if you get one of these like empowered female characters that are able to throw men around that are 3 times their size, it makes the woman feel good about herself. A lot of Western fiction is based about appeasing women, and men are more interested in, say, the storyline. We're not so much interested in the characters. We want the characters to do interesting stuff, whereas women want.
Why don't we shift that into Mad Max?
Yeah,
remember
I
Mad
haven't
Max?
seen the movie myself. I'm a big fan of the original movies.
Me too.
Except for the first one, which is still a classic in itself.
Road Warrior, man. Road fucking Warrior. Are you kidding me? That movie was... that movie...
Mate, nah, come on. It wasn't the... This one was before the post-apocalyptic setting.
Mad Max, the first
one.
First
the
video.
very first one.
No, I'm talking about Road Warrior, the second
Road
one.
Warrior was fantastic.
Unbelievable, man.
Oh, that one was bloody brilliant.
Unfucking believable movie. When I heard the news they were gonna like make another fucking movie, I was like, I don't want to see it, man.
Yeah,
I already saw it.
I was a bit like, we've kind of gone past the whole cheesy action over the top. It doesn't have the 80s feel, and
no, they'll never reproduce.
And it doesn't have Mel Gibson, and he's way too old to play the part anyway.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Mel Gibson was one of the things that made that character.
Yeah,
but I mean,
course,
I'll see it when it comes out on DVD. But I'm not going to get so hooked up on it as to whether it's a feminist thing or not. I think that was a bit silly, and that was from Return of the Kings, also actually owned by Rooch V.
And it was Clary.
Yeah,
that
I know.
wrote that
I was like,
fucking
"Oh,
article.
Clary, there we go. Got sand in your vagina, mate."
Like, and I did he even watch the movie?
No, he
I don't
didn't.
know. But
apparently, what it was all about was that the feminist that wrote the vagina monologues was brought on to consult in the making of the movie to try and make the sex slave aspect seem more realistic, which seemed really stupid considering it's a high chase car movie in the middle of the Australian desert in a post-apocalyptic setting. And Australia has no oil, so the first thing we would lose in the apocalypse is cars.
Cars, yeah, you wouldn't be able to drive anywhere. Everybody on bicycles.
Hey, mate, don't mock bicycles, right?
I'm not mocking them. I'm just saying that's all
you.
you.
Sort of Mad Max theme shit with the bicycles. You just give us a go. We'll do it. Give us a carton of beer or 3, and we'll do it.
Now that is the Mad Max I'd like to see.
Yeah, see that
I'd
be
like
fun,
to see
you know,
everybody on bikes.
Bikes, some trikes, and some fucking 4-wheelers, and everybody pedaling around with some guys in leather swinging around a chain. I mean,
yeah, man. But I'll tell you something, man. Like this is also again a difference between who we are as Mgtow and what feminism is. No Mgtow man stood up and said, "I don't like your movie because it's feminist." No Mgtow man did that. So, Aaron Clary did that, and we all know who that fucking guy is. But I'll tell you something: every fucking feminist and his brother stood up and clickbaited that comment and made a fucking couple $100 off of it.
And what is interesting is they painted the MRA as being, or the men's rights movement as being the origin for it. Not Clary, not some sort of pseudo-trad PUA guy. They made it the MRM because, again, that's a much more interesting, more dramatic villain. And
yes.
And as our conversation about the potential Mad Max movie we're going to be making, again, you see how men are... We weren't talking about the characters. We were talking about what even just the background extras we're doing.
Yeah.
Women want the characters because, again, women are far more into the collective and they spend far more time just talking to one another about meaningless stuff to try and stay within the tribe. And I think what happens when it comes to fiction is women, when they read about a fictional woman they latch on to
what was that?
50 Shades of Grey,
50 Shades
or
of Grey.
the Furiosa from Mad Max. Whether it's a good woman or a bad woman, they latch on to her as if she is somebody in their little clique, in the tribe. And by having Furiosa, a fictional female, be badass, well, they must be badass too. And this is what I'm seeing from Western fiction, which is why, to Raging Golden Eagle, if you're listening, I've been getting into the anime for just a change in that, is that it really does pander to the female ego or the victimhood complex. They're either all victims or they're all fantastic badasses.
Yes, exactly, man. That's what I was thinking. You're either being raped until you can't stand, or you're killing every motherfucker in the screenshot.
Mate, I have to disagree with you just for a little bit. You're either being raped till you can't stand until the point where you can get up and then kill yourself. That's actually what they're all about. I mean, it just seems to be what women want. They want to, because they can emotionally either implant themselves into that character, and there are characters that do that for men as well, like Indiana Jones. He's pretty much a generic adventure guy, and that way the men can implant themselves into that character. But again, they're not interested in the character, they're interested in what the character's doing. Whereas the women are interested in the female character that is having shit done to her. She's being raped. Yeah. She's just still another passive entity that's going on in the.
But this is the fascinating thing about it, man. Is that women love. I don't care what they fucking say. They love that passive role. They love the role of the man in charge, taking control of
and
her.
The reason is because they're able to avoid responsibility, like the victim identity in the triangle. This is why I made that video, because they want to avoid responsibility. When you're the victim, you're not responsible for anything, and when they can't be victimized, then they'll just be passive.
And this again, let's separate the difference between Mgtow and feminism one more time.
Well, just before you do that, mate, I'll just duck off to the loo.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead. Go take a piss or a shit or whatever you gotta take. Should I like a big piece of pie? Hello?
Yeah, I'm back now.
All right. So what I wanted to say was basically this. Is that when it comes down to, regardless of the role that is played, I believe that for women, what they desire the most, and you said this before, and you said it in your video that we were referencing from before, is that they want the least amount of responsibility for the actions that they take. Now, in a movie or in a fictional setting, men aren't that concerned about the responsibility of the man. They accept it as a part of his character. Whereas women perceive their role as being without any responsibility at all. It doesn't matter if she is the tough guy, woman, killing everyone, or the princess being rescued. As long as she has no fucking responsibility attributed to the actions that she makes. And that, my friends, is the biggest difference between, let's say, the concept or the mind concept of the Mgtow and the feminist. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. And I think another aspect that needs to be put into this is back before our society was affluent, back through, say, medieval and ancient times, women were far more responsible than they were today because, well, survival was a factor. I mean, the concept of women not working or not contributing is bullshit. Throughout history, we would have resembled what modern farming families look like today. everybody puts in absolute bloody bucket loads of work. You want to see women working, you look to the farming families. And that's, I think, one of the biggest differences, again, is that Western society has gotten too easy in that regards, and thus women can stay in a state of perpetual childhood where they don't have to, they can choose not to be responsible and choose to avoid taking responsibility for their actions, and as long as it's allowed by either the environment, the culture, the government, the people, they will, of course, indulge that, whereas men clearly don't reject responsibility, they just reject success.
Yes.
We're seeing that all over, not even just in the Western cultures, but in the Eastern with Japan, that once things...
I think it's very universal. And I think it's a very good argument for the differences biologically between men and women.
Oh yeah, when things get tough or get to a point where it's just not worth man's effort, men become like the lazy lion. We conserve our energy, we don't bother to risk injury, and we just make sure we've got enough for ourselves. Whereas when there is enough of a reward for having a family, we'll put in the hard slog and the hard work. And this is why all of society is coming out with all these books of get men back into doing the whole family shtick. And they don't actually want to address the issues that men have no parental rights, which is one of the biggest reasons why the family fell apart.
Yes.
But that's one of the things with feminism is very hypocritical. I don't see a lot of that in Mgtow. I do see some crazy Mgtow content makers that I'm just like, I'm just, you go down your crazy road and I'll just stay here. Mm-hmm. But feminists, they're very hypocritical.
Very, very hypocritical. And that's actually, I wanted to mention that earlier, is that a big difference between, let's say, how Mgtow communicate and how, let's say, feminists communicate with each other. Do they communicate with each other? I don't know. But when you hear them talk, they're hypocritical. The hypocrisy in the words and the things they say, they don't seem to address it or understand it. Whereas in Mgtow, because it's men, because it is men, we go, you're being a fucking hypocrite. Check yourself.
I think the big difference is, again, men are put under harsher forces just in general life than what women are. And in the case of Mgtow, we're trying to search for answers and solutions and just things we can implement in our own personal lives. So we are always constantly looking to perfect that, whereas women are just looking at what makes them feel good, particularly in the case of feminists, because feminists are just children, and children want to just feel good. They're not looking for what works, they're looking for what makes them feel good in the moment. Whereas we, especially the Mgtow men, I mean, I came into Mgtow not because of feminism, but from attempting, or not YouTube, but actually from attempting to date women. And I say attempting because I was probably born, to use the pill analogy, purple pill. I did have my blue pill moment when I first entered the BDSM community because I really wanted to experience some fetishes. And I did a rather embarrassing trip around Australia, and that was actually probably one of the worst things I could have done for myself, because it showed me how utterly entitled even just fat and obese girls were. I mean, I was flying around the country, new to each place I was going to, and I couldn't even get them, to pick a restaurant. And one of them, when I had already left the state I was in and moved to another state, I was talking about going back down to the original to meet her. she said, just pick a restaurant on the east side of the city because that's closest to me. I can't go any further than that. And I thought, I'm fucking flying interstate to meet you. And so I called that one off, and that was a big eye-opener for me, that women were exceedingly passive, and they, anytime they could, throw the responsibility onto me for picking everything they would. And this is even more so in the BDSM community. But it was just a huge eye-opener, and that was what inevitably led me into feminism, because I ended up watching some Anita Sarkeesian videos, the original ones, and I just went and YouTubed Women Against Feminism because I just needed a detox from her stupidity, which led me all the way to Mgtow. But if I hadn't had that experience of dating, I don't think I would have ever actually gotten into Mgtow, because my problem wasn't feminism, it was women and all the really bad advice I had been given in regards to them.
Fuck. You know what, though? That's good news for men, because all men, at some point, are going to have to deal with that. You know, at some point, they're going to have to deal with that. I mean, I have a son, and I think about it, and at some point, he's going to have to fucking deal with that.
I think the best thing in the case of your son is just to tell him the reality of women. Like, for example, women want men who are superior to them. And I've actually just... I fiddle around with writing a sort of help guide for men every so often. And I was just writing an opener to the chapter that I was calling Women Make Themselves Sex Objects. And the reason for this is because they want a man who's more intelligent, taller, stronger, capable, more driven, wealthier. By the time they go through all of that, the only unique thing they have to bring to the table is vagina, because they're not even bringing sex. Men and women equally bring sex, but they bring vagina, so it's just basically fertility. But either way, the way you engage with vagina is through sex.
And they love it. And they love it. I just finished watching a documentary on prostitutes. Not prostitutes, I'm sorry. What do you call them? Not sex workers. Porn stars. Porn stars that had just kind of like gone through their... It was a documentary on porn stars that went through their life, and then after, and they were interviewing these so-called ex-porn stars and their lives. And in the end, every single one of these goddamn porn stars were like, I just want to have a baby and you know, have a man that loves me.
Yeah, and the thing, it all comes down to the fact that the only thing that's, by the time they're done looking for a man who's superior to them in all these qualities, the only thing they can bring is sex. And that was the big point I was getting with the chapter, and this is one thing men don't understand, is that women date up, men date down. And this is something that I wasn't ever prepared for as a young man, as a teenager, anything. If I had known this going in, I would have been better prepared and would have been more... I probably wouldn't have engaged. I didn't engage that much anyway, but... it wouldn't have been as much of a shock to me. It would have been, and I wouldn't have had to work it out for myself. And this is one of the big things that is the reality of why Mgtow men are actually angry, is because we realize we've been lied to. We've been told this whole fluff bullshit about, you just find that one woman you connect with. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Oh,
God. And that's another beautiful example of the differences. And again, I'm going to say this: a big difference between, say, Mgtow and feminism is that within Mgtow we teach one another. Within Mgtow, we teach other men how to relate to women and the women around them and the environment that creates the women around them. Whereas in feminism, they don't teach you that. They just teach you to be a victim.
Yeah, they teach you how to find victimhood, and they teach you how to bitch about it. They again, don't want you to take any responsibility for fixing it, because then you don't have anything to bitch about. But
Yeah.
they don't want to. Mgtow are also equally interested in male behavior and how we react and how we men and women react
Yes.
to each other. I don't see this in feminism. They don't seem to want to delve into any aspect of women, except for enough to say, or we're a victim, or we're disadvantaged, and men have privilege. They don't want to actually look into why women do what
Their
they
own
do.
behavior.
Yeah, they don't want to look at their
Yeah.
own behavior. They don't want to question themselves, because that requires hard questions with unflattering answers more often than not.
Yeah.
Again, one of the big things, like Sargon of Akkad makes it very aware on his channel quite often, is he will say, be the change you want to see. Feminists keep bitching about women not being in business or politics, then why are you getting a gender studies degree? And again, it comes down to, well, children are of the mindset that they should be able to do what they want and have the outcome they want, not do what equals the outcome they want.
Yes, exactly.
And this is, again, why I look at them as children.
And you know what? As a father, okay, I'm going to say this. As a father, the one thing that I would want to teach my children is you are in control of your own life. Take what you've got and make it work for you. Okay, as a father, as a divorced father, not even with my son doesn't even have his mother right now, but as a father, that's my main goal for that child. What are your skills? What do you know? What do you enjoy? Make it work for you and improve that in your own life. But for some fucking reason, this is not what feminism is trying to teach women or men. They're trying to teach them, if you feel bad, then just bitch about it, and maybe somebody will come to your rescue.
Again, it comes down to the victim identity. The victim identity is actually quite powerful, because once you get somebody coming to your rescue, you can dictate to them from on high however they must behave and how they must aid you. And you're above criticism, you're above blame. It's the perfect place for the most passive, lazy people to control the world.
Now, have we experienced this outside of feminism? I mean, come on, we must have.
I would say probably communism, maybe, but I wouldn't say that's so much a case of just being lazy. I'd say that's a case of just the impoverished poor finally having enough of the very few, like the 1%ers, just pissing them off.
So it crosses over there somewhere.
No. It's just more the case that communism breeds lethargic behavior, but it's not lethargic behavior breeds communism. Whereas lethargic behavior breeds feminism. And to some extent, feminism also breeds lethargic behavior. It feeds it, whereas communism, lethargic behavior is a result of a communist system being implemented. Whereas it takes quite a lot of effort to overthrow, like in Russia, to overthrow the aristocracy and execute them. That's actually takes quite a lot of effort to organize a rebellion, an entire revolution of the class system. But
well,
I would say
maybe
that
that's
we probably... I would like to say yes, but nothing comes to mind. I can't think of another time where people have acted like victims, except for maybe the Jews. And I know everybody blames the Jews, but the way they really started to behave after the Holocaust, and even before the Holocaust, they're still bitching about Egypt taking them as slaves to over 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to be another person blaming the Jews, but for fuck's sake, get over the 2,000-year-old shit that never happened to you.
But that's an interesting concept to me, because it almost seems like victimhood is a precursor to communism. It's almost like you need to have this concept of like I am a victim before communism can take hold.
Yes, and that's going to be discussed to some extent in my next video about triangles, because the drama triangles with the three positions throughout everything. You know, the way you get communism in place is to claim that the lower class is the victim class, whilst the upper class is the persecutor, and the communists are the rescuers. And the capitalists do the same thing. Politics do the same thing, whether it's Republicans or Democrats or whatever you've got in the countries. It's throughout every aspect. We really do love playing these three roles. Everybody wants to be the hero, and then casts their opposition as the villain, whilst the people they're trying to get approval from are the victims.
So if that's true, then I would say that if you, as a community, as a society, if you are witness to a group of people using victimhood as an excuse to increase their own power, I would say stop it.
Yes, and I'd also say keep a close eye on your women, because that is where that particular desire comes from first. There is people who get placed in the victim status, and usually this is, say, for a long time it used to be the working class, and one political party would say, we're going to make sure that you don't get misused by your employers, you know, the rich, horrible employers. We'll make sure you get a fair hourly rate, wage, and so on, right? And that wasn't the working class choosing the victim status. That was it being, they were cast into it, and once they were in it, it became their identity of just the horrible bastards mistreating us. It wasn't so much a case of we can sit in this role and gain as much power as we want. It was...
So would you say that a very quick step towards power and control would be to claim a victim? And one of the easiest ways to claim victimhood is to be a woman, because you are the weaker of the sexually dimorphic species of humankind.
I would actually say it's just more a case of the easiest way for women to gain power is to claim victimhood. Men don't get power from that role. We really don't.
But obviously, come on, let's be honest here. Power, regardless of whether it is a penis or a vagina that wields it, do you not believe that the easiest way to do it is to take the weakest sex, make it a victim, and then perpetuate rules, laws, and
as long as you allow a method for men to play the rescuer, it works. So, for example, in the case of feminism, women are the victims, feminism is the rescuer, but male feminists, you know, the good men, the patriarchy is the persecutor or the villain, but the good men can be feminists, they can be rescuers too. And as long as you allow men a means to jump through hoops and to do the rescuer role, then it works.
Well, how do they do that? I mean, is that natural?
Yeah. I mean, men are so desperate to play the rescuer role that they will become male feminists. And honestly, just you look at some of these male feminists, and you can see that they really lack a whole lot of self-respect and even intelligence, or just the ability to observe things as they unfold.
It's like I had a good friend of mine. A good friend of mine once told me, it's like looking a goat. It's like staring a goat in the eyes. Have you ever looked at a goat? I don't know. You're in Australia. Maybe you have experience with animal husbandry to some degree. But have you ever stared a goat in the eyes?
I've stared similar animals in the eyes. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
and it's dead.
dead.
It's
Yeah.
dead. It's like this dead stare. And a friend of mine told me that, and I've never forgotten it. It's just, and I see women like that all the time. It's like looking a goat. He always equated it to a goat. It's like staring a goat in the eyes. There's nothing there. It's dead. It's just.
But back to the power. In the easiest way to gain power quickest is to claim that either a woman claims she's a victim or a man claims that women are victims. And as long as you've got the rescuer role, that the men say, hey, we're going to protect the women, and we see this in politics a lot, where they say, we're going to save the women. As long as there's that rescuer role, men will get on board with it. If you deny the rescuer role, then the only role for men to play is the persecutor, and men don't want to be the villain over women. And that's when it comes apart. But as long as the easiest way for power is to claim that women are the victims and you're either going to save them, or for women to claim they're the victims and they need saving.
I am the villain. I am the villain. I am Kryptonite. I am Lex Luthor. Done.
Mate, I'm not even a villain. I'm just more the case that I can't be asked. You're not going to get me in anything. You're not going to.
Well, well, that's the thing, man. Is Lex Luthor never got tricked. He was always on top of the game. That's why I brought up the Superman concept. It's like Lex Luthor. I mean, Superman was undefeatable. He was the god. He was a god.
Yeah.
And his arch nemesis was a guy that just was smart. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
He just could think. And that's how I see Mgtow.
See, my point is, though, is to not play any three roles. That's how you defeat the triangle. If you're taking on the persecutor or the villain role and playing it, then you're still a slave to the other two, because you're still feeding their part. So as much as I do have a villain complex myself, and I do indulge in it, and it actually, surprisingly, indulging in it around women will get you laid very easily.
It's funny, man. Lex Luthor always got laid.
But when you're playing the villain, you're still giving the rescuer and the victim what they want. So
you're still playing the part,
and this
man.
is the thing about this is the problem with the men's rights movement, is that as long as the feminists will cast it as the villain, and the rest of the world might cast it as the villain. I mean, we've got a big uptake in anti-feminism, but they won't actually get on board with men's rights, even when they say, oh, look, all your points are pretty valid. I just won't take it on, and I won't take up the cause. And I'm just like, well, if they're valid, shouldn't you? And this is one of the reasons why I ended up ducking out of the men's rights movement. Not enough people will ever join it because it's already cast as the villain. And
I was talking about that just recently, man. I was just recently talking about that in videos.
But
of how
the problem comes in again is by engaging in the villain role and taking on feminism, it's still feeding them what they want. So this is the one thing I want to say to Mgtows is don't be the villain. It can be fun to play sometimes, but you're still giving the victim and the rescuer what they want. The male feminists want somebody to come around and say, look, women are lazy or stupid because they can't take their fertility control, because then he can stand up and go, how dare you say that? You don't understand what it's all about, yada, 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 and women will come and pat him on the head, and he gets his fulfillment from being a rescuer, and women get their fulfillment from being a victim.
Well, you know what? What you're saying is the essence of walking away.
Exactly.
Part of the acronym is walking away.
And this is the only way to get out of any of these drama triangles, is to just completely elevate yourself out of them. Don't play any role.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't to say that you won't actually be victimized from things in your life, but if you're in the victim role for the drama, if you're in the persecutor role again for the drama, and same with the rescuer, then you're in the drama triangle. Whereas,
God,
if
you're talking like high-level meditation here, man.
yes, it's just more a case of you once you become aware of these three roles, and that everybody's played all three in their life. There's just nobody who hasn't. And when you become aware of these three roles being in existence, once you take it into your conscious mind, you are more aware of the times when you might just go into being a persecutor just to the people around you. You might just have a little pick at them, and it's not for any reason bar the drama. You know that if you say that little smart-ass comment, it's just for the drama. It won't add to the environment. It won't build anything better.
Exactly.
And we love the drama. That's the big thing about it. And you see the same thing in our fiction. Everything's very drama in our fiction.
Dramatical.
Yeah, because we don't want boring fiction, and we absolutely crave and love the drama.
Well, I'll tell you something, man. Everything you're saying now is a beautiful concept of Mgtow. A beautiful concept of Mgtow. And I think more people should listen to that and understand that. And the one thing I want to add to it is this, is that if you consider outside of outside of all the bullshit that happens between men and women, and the dynamics of men and women, and our procreation of our species, fuck that. Outside of that, the one thing that always has been a part of what I understand is exactly what you were saying, and that's this. You don't have as much control over your life as you think you do. So the best thing to do is to allow for a little bit of uncertainty. Allow for it.
Basically, you can only control your reaction. Now,
Yes.
I used to have a saying, God, can I remember it? A human is a sum of their past, their emotions, and there was a third thing. It was, damn it, I can't remember anymore. But it was a combination of just of our past, how we reacted to it, and the emotions that we felt during that reaction. And in reality, when it comes down to it, all humans can do is control our reaction. Because, for example, you want food, you need to get a job. You don't have a choice in that, but you can control your reaction to that need for food. What job do you go get? What do you go study? That's all we can do. We can only control our reactions. And that's actually quite powerful, because depending on how you react, it depends on your whole situation. Again, to take it down to just personal relationships, somebody is in a bad mood. You can choose to start being bad like them, or you can choose to just get the fuck out of the area and just go, you know what, fuck it, I'm off doing my own thing. You go be pissy all you want over there. I'm going to listen to some cool music and drown you out.
Yes. And that same decision can be made within the individual. The individual can choose to say, I'm upset. I'm going to react this way or not.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. At the moment, since I've been taking my testosterone medication, that was one thing. My reaction once I started looking into it, and I reacted to the information on the internet, and I went to get it checked out at the doctor. Found out that yes, I had low testosterone levels. And then the hellish nightmare of going through the last few months of just trying to get the right dosage and type of medication sent me on a roller coaster of brilliant days, terrible days. I could choose to react to that and quit taking the medication, but no, I persevered, and at this point I'm getting to a much better point where I can control the outcome through experimentation in very low doses of the testosterone now.
Well, that's good. I mean, if you can take your environment and make a decision based on the environment that you have around you, I mean, that's the whole point. I mean,
that's the essence of Mgtow. It's the case of going, the environment has become very toxic to men in general, and we can only control our reaction. We can't control society. And this is the difference between men's rights movement. They want to try and control others, the society. And Mgtow's going, no, all you can do is control yourself and pull away from something that's dangerous. One of the things I always find in survival guidebooks for Australia is if you're out in the desert, don't eat any of the plants, any of the fruiting plants, because half of them are poisonous, the other half you'll have an allergic reaction to. And the reality is you probably can find that one rare plant that you won't react to. But it's so rare, and you're in such a state of, trying to survive from starvation and dehydration, you just don't want to fuck with it. So just don't do it. And this is a reaction to the environment. You're in a harsh environment. Don't go trying to find a plant you can eat. Just don't eat any and find something else to eat. And here's some stuff you can find to eat. Yeah.
It's a beautiful. That's a beautiful analogy, actually. Actually, that is a beautiful analogy of men going their own way. The ability to react to your environment in a way where you control yourself after you've had to deal with what the environment has thrown at you.
And if we bring this back to the original topic of how feminism is not, Mgtow is not feminism, feminists don't actively work to control their reactions. They actively work to control others.
Yes.
And that's probably the biggest difference. Feminism tries to control the external. Mgtow controls the internal.
Yes. You know what that's like? It's like, God, let's put it in a Australian perspective here. You're in the outback, in the middle of nowhere. The Mgtow man is the man trying to survive within a harsh environment. The feminist is the mosquito that's flying around and buzzing around your head, trying to take advantage of every moment it can to suck your blood.
I suppose it's more a case of try and put it in an analogy. It's a case of people, like tone policing. Women really like doing this. And what that is a form of external control. Is instead of controlling their reaction and going, you know what, I can ignore that, or I can not care, or I can not associate with this person anymore, what they'll do is go, that's not nice and that makes me feel bad, don't say that, or say it in a nicer way.
Even okay, let's make this distinction between human beings, animals, plants, and minerals. All right? On a human level, we can take in input and decide how we want to react. On an animal level, maybe we react first. Okay? On a plant or mineral level, you have no choice. You must react with the environment around you. Feminism is like being a fucking plant. It's like being a rock, a mineral. It's like...
No, I disagree, because feminism, it's more the case of they're refusing to take any kind of reaction to the environment, and they're trying to demand the environment to react to them. It's like a plant saying, there's not enough water here, I demand it to rain upon me, instead of developing, instead of evolving, say, a nice big fat trunk to store water when it does
store the water
when it does rain. That's a reaction to the environment. The plant is doing, obviously not consciously or even subconsciously, just doing it through evolution and biology, to prepare for the environment, whereas the feminist plant would be there going, "Don't you dare oppress me with your drought."
So, feminism is extinction.
It is to an extent, because the difference again is that the women who engage in feminism are ones who have plenty of safety nets. They can fucking waste their time doing feminism. They can waste their money, because it's not even their money. More often than not, they're wasting somebody else's money. Whereas if you get into, say, the second world nations, which China is getting to a point like that, and Hong Kong is...
even here, man. Even here in Indonesia, it's getting into
but when
that.
you have a look at, say, men and women, or the women in those nations, when they pick a career, they pick something that earns money. They don't fuck about. They go and pick something that earns money, and they work hard at it, because they're in a second world nation where there isn't welfare, or there's very little welfare.
There's no choice. Little choice.
It's the case of death. There's less safety nets for them. Whereas the Western first world middle class, because you can't even get feminism into the lower class in the Western nations, which have even less safety nets. And that's the thing. These women are children because they have all the safety nets.
Wait a second. Look, if feminism is a majority within the female middle class society of the Western world, like, who are these people? Are they the proletariats? I mean, who the fuck are these people?
Well, they're just a byproduct of the West's success. That's it. I mean, because the West is so successful that we can have people just be a drain on the system, that we can't have.
It's amazing. This is the most amazing part of it. This is how you identify how much privilege you have. Because you have enough time to actually sit down and think about getting pissed off over a shirt that somebody wore. I mean, that is fucking privilege, man.
Yes, but I also like to try and get away from that word personally. But, yeah, to use their language, yes, it's privilege. Personally, I view it as if basically either you or your parents have worked hard enough to get you to a point where you can fucking waste your time like that. I personally think waste your time doing something more productive, like, I don't know, trying to see if you can fit fruit up your ass, but...
yeah, of course. But at the same time, I mean, this is the point. I mean, the point is this. They cry victimhood, okay? They cry victimhood. But in order for them to be able to cry that victimhood and actually make headlines in the news, you've got to have some kind of fucking privilege, man. Because, believe it or not, the rest of the world and the poor people, they really can't do that. They just sort of get on with their lives.
Yeah, because they don't have the time. They can't waste it. I mean, this is one of the reasons why you can't get women in the lower class to get on board with feminism. They actually need their men. You know, and that's why it's not in second world. It's in some second world nations in prosperous parts, but it's not in...
is this a middle class movement? Is this a middle class movement, man?
I would say it's a middle and some upper class, because the upper class, the real upper class, tend to look at it and not really be a part of feminism, because I think they're smart enough to realize that you don't rock the boat when you're right at the top. Because when you rock the boat at the top, what's going to happen is all the people down at the bottom are going to look up at you and go, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, that's what the whole French Revolution was. The aristocracy just started going fucking stupid and making sure that they prospered whilst the poor were restricted and more so.
Yeah, exactly.
And eventually they had
But not only that, but even a lot of the middle class women. Okay, we have to designate sex here. Middle class women, if they call themselves middle class, generally have a upper class man behind them. Now, that's not a sexist statement. That is a statement of fact, and it happens everywhere in the fucking world. Now, these women tend to have an opportunity where they have very little, no, I'm sorry, a lot of time.
Hang on a second, mate. I'm back, mate.
All right. I was just going to say, it almost seems like it's usually women, because in the industrialized nations, the women tend to have a lot of time and money, but that time and money generally is guaranteed to them from the men they are with, right?
It's more so affluent societies, because one of the things with Rome and ancient Sparta was when it got affluent enough, women had enough time on their hands to just basically mess shit up, really. So it's not so much just the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution has just created even more time. And
wealth. It's wealth.
Yeah, it's wealth.
It's wealth. But the wealth is often...
and it is the women who are in the middle or upper class that lead the way. That just...
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who have the time. The poor women or the lower class women are actually working the land. They're working the farm. They're out with the kids picking the eggs out of the hen house.
Yeah. And the upper class men are working.
Yeah. I mean, for most of human history, the well, not so much the upper class, but they were the ones in charge of the armies.
Yeah. No, they were the upper class men were either working or fighting, or I mean, they were
doing things.
Their life was valuable based on how well they could move their arms and legs. If you know what I mean.
Their manual labor.
Right? Yeah. The women, no. They fed off of what they got from the men. That hasn't changed. Correct?
Oh, yeah. If you have a look at the way society is structured now, with, say, feminism, what it has been, it's moved from a model of one woman gets money and protection from one man and exchanges sex and fertility. And I don't even like saying sex, because she still gets sex from the man, but that's the selling point, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's changed with feminism, as the collective of women go to the government and offer their vote and their vagina through victimhood status, because then the government can pretend to be the rescuer of women.
And what's the benefit of the government to be the protector of these
votes?
women?
They get lots of votes from the women, and they'll get votes from men who also want to be perceived as rescuers. And it's far more eschewing than being perceived as the persecutor of women. You become the persecutor of women, you're not going to get voted in.
All right, so anybody listening to this talk today, especially if you're a woman, don't expect any sympathy from the men that are listening, because you have all the power. We don't. That's all I wanted to say. And you know what? We got to put this to a close.
Yep, no problem, mate.
And I'll put this together. I'll edit it, and we'll make a really good fucking conversation out of it.
Definitely, it was good talking to you.
Yeah, man, it was so good talking to you. It's been so long.
Definitely.
So long.
And you let me know when it's uploaded, and I'll send my viewers that way.
Okay, I will. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put it together. I'll edit it, and then I'll send you a copy of what I've got edited. You can do whatever you want with it, and then. No,
don't worry. Just whatever you upload on YouTube, I'll just send people to watch.
Okay, sounds cool, man. It was really good talking to you, man. It was too long.
Definitely.
I missed your voice.
Oh, I know. It's a sexy voice.
I missed your sexy voice. All right, man. Take care of yourself. I got to get going. It's getting late. Yep. All right. Take care of yourself, man. Bye.